Hello, everybody. I am thrilled to be here. Um, and as Erin said, I work at Matthaei Botanical Gardens. And it's such a bummer. The tree in the blue pot there was just blooming like a week and a half ago. It was completely covered in like coral blooms. It was gorgeous. And actually, I've got a photo at the very end of the presentation. We have an early blooming azalea that is at peak bloom right now in the conservatory. So do stop by if you get a chance. It's probably maybe through the end of the week if we're lucky. By Wednesday, we'll start losing blooms, so they go quick. But a little bit about me. Who the heck am I? So I began working with MBGNA in 2009 in the peony garden. Has anybody been to the peony garden? All right, okay, cool. So if you need any peony advice, you can catch me after. I still remember everything. But I began caring for the bonsai collection in 2011. I had no idea the gardens had a bonsai collection. I had never done bonsai. I didn't know anything about it. But I was like, yeah, sure, I could water those, of course. And then now it is my entire life, inside and outside of work, actually. So shortly after I started caring for this collection, we were in talks with a donor about taking on his 160 trees, mostly azaleas. And so at this point was when I decided, oh, I should probably have some professional training. So I began going out to Michael Hagedorn in Portland, Oregon. He has a garden called Crataegus Bonsai. This is a picture of the garden there. And this was like 3 days of classes, 4 times a year. And so I started to get more of an idea of how to do bonsai, on more of a professional level. In 2021, I actually moved to Portland for 3 years and lived at the garden, managing all of the trees in the backyard for an official apprenticeship. And then I came back to my old job in 2024. So I've been back for just over a year. We've got all of the trees that were donated to us. It took a couple years to kind of bring them in these waves, but now we have over 200 trees. I have a small smattering here of a couple of them, a couple of my own, and a couple of projects in the works, which we can talk about later. But what we're going to talk about today is kind of bonsai in general, how you get started, what they need. And if at any point you have questions, feel free to raise your hand. And hopefully I will talk quickly enough that we'll get through my too many slides and have some time at the end for questions. Yes? Conservatory. So if you walk right into the botanical gardens, you should be able to see it almost from the lobby, straight back. It's so bright. So what is bonsai? A lot of folks have this misconception that it's a specific species of tree or a special seed that you get, but actually it's the combination of 2 Japanese characters, bon and sai, so a dish and a tree that's been planted with some kind of purpose. So it's a tree in a pot, essentially, that you're growing and caring for. Any woody plant can be a bonsai. Anything from, let's see, even here we have elm, ficus, azalea, juniper, white pine, quince. That's just to name a few. We probably have over 25 varieties at the garden, maybe more. I haven't counted recently. But I've seen everything from chrysanthemums, which will get a woody stem after a while, to wild collected junipers out of the Rocky Mountains. So you can pretty much, it's kind of how you manage the tree and care for the tree rather than a specific kind of tree. Any of these, if you were to go and plant them in the ground and ignore them, they would revert and just be a regular tree. With a really cool trunk though, actually. So where do they come from? What's their significance? So they actually began in China, and it's said that the monks then kind of took them over to Japan. They kind of spread throughout Asia, and every country kind of took on their own style of how to grow and cultivate trees. So in China, it's called penjing. It's a little bit looser. There's not as many strict rules, I guess you could say. It's more landscape-esque, whereas in Japan, it's more related to kind of their wabi-sabi aesthetic of perfect imperfection. It relates closely to the tea ceremony and Japanese gardens and that kind of thing. Interesting tree here. This is a white pine that lives at the National Arboretum in Washington, D.C. This was a gift to the United States after the bombing of Hiroshima. It actually survived the bombing, and it was given to us as a gift. It's still there. It's over 450 years old. So if you ever get down there, swing through. It's a great tree. So as I mentioned, bonsai is very culturally significant in Japan. It's, again, kind of part of this aesthetic of not quite perfection, but of taking in the beauty and the simplicity of things as they are, whether it's, in a Japanese garden, in the tea ceremony, that kind of thing. It's just another kind of aesthetic piece of the puzzle there. But it's actually moved all across the world. There's bonsai in South Africa, Australia, I think everywhere except Antarctica, as far as I know. Maybe they have a tree down there. I think somebody sent one to space once. So, it's getting around. But the US has really had a spike in bonsai since after World War II. A lot of the soldiers saw it over there, thought it was interesting, and wanted to come home and, create something of their own. And so the US bonsai scene is actually still pretty young compared to places like Europe and other areas in Asia. But it's coming along, and it's kind of defining itself as it goes. So it's an interesting process to watch. Okay, but how do you do it? How do you do bonsai? That's a great question. Let's see if I can help you figure it out. We'll see. So how do you even start? Where do bonsai come from? So this is my friend John. He owns a bonsai nursery outside of Portland, Oregon. He has over 10,000 trees in progress, from cuttings to, I think, 5-year-old is kind of what he's focusing on now. What he would like to do is eventually get out of that first 5 years and do year 10 through 15 of cultivation. But he's a nursery grower. So you can start a bonsai from a seed or a cutting. That is the longest, most time-intensive way to do bonsai. But if you get nursery stock, something that John has grown for a few years, you're kind of set up to be in a good spot and move forward with that. You can also collect trees, or you can just buy a bonsai. That's the fastest way. It's also the most expensive way, but you'll get the best bang for your buck. So collecting trees, you can do that with the correct permits. The wild collected trees are called yamadori. I don't have anything here that was wild collected. We do have a couple at the Botanical Gardens. So there are folks who will specifically go out and hunt for trees in the Rocky Mountains in particular, the Cascades. South Texas has a lot. Louisiana, they're pulling bald cypresses out of the swamp. It's pretty crazy. But getting a permit is, it's best if you get a permit, just so you don't get in any trouble. But then you can also dig something up from your yard, and we jokingly call that yardadori. So if you have an old boxwood hedge or an old yew hedge, those make great starter material. We actually have a yew at the Botanical Gardens that was pulled from a 100-year-old hedge and then transformed into a tree. Or you can buy a bonsai. They vary in size, they vary in price. The better trees are more expensive. Or you can buy a young tree that's not very mature, not very well refined, and grow it up yourself into one of these for a slightly better price. And so what you want to consider when you're getting a bonsai, right? What do all plants need to survive? They all need light, they all need water, and they all need soil. So as far as light goes, they are outdoor trees. They live outside. If you do have tropical species, you can grow them inside over the winter. You can grow them inside all year, but they really do better and grow much quicker outdoors. Water. This is my favorite. Wait until it's dry and water it the day before. This is it's one of the most common questions we get. When do you water a tree? Well, with everything in bonsai, it depends. You water it when it's almost too dry. And each tree is a little bit different. You learn your trees over time, and even those requirements change over season. So right now, we're kind of in a heavy watering phase. Everything's growing new foliage. The sun is out, it's windy. We water once a day. It's still cool. But in June, if it's 75, 80 degrees, sunny, windy, and all the trees are outside, sometimes it's twice. Sometimes it's 3 times. Unfortunately, I was in Portland when we had the heat dome, and it was 117 degrees, and then you water all day. You just keep everything wet. So, but the same tree, like I mentioned, might change its needs over time. So really, you just have to pay attention. Bonsai is a game of noticing. You have to learn to pay attention to even the smallest details. And then some kind of soil. Soil anchors the roots. It holds the water and nutrients so that the plant can grow and thrive. This is a picture from a rooftop in Japan of a bonsai nursery. Everybody's out in the sunshine. I think they stay out all winter. I don't believe the temperatures get terribly, terribly cold there. They don't need a greenhouse, luckily, because it's a lot of trees. So light. Know your tree's light requirements. Pine, junipers, tropicals all require full sun. Maples, azaleas, part shade. So if you purchase a plant, know what it needs. And like I mentioned, if you're growing or overwintering something indoors, you can provide supplemental light. The light's available now. You can get a $20 light off of Amazon, shipped to you next day. It works. It might not be the best light, but it works. Or you can go full on. There's so many hydroponic stores now too, honestly. They've got lights. And there's so many gardening places online too that have different kinds of lights. LED are generally the most efficient, but you can use, there's a lot of different varieties that you could get. Soils. So bonsai soil is different than what you usually use for planting things. There's no organic matter. It's all, you can see what the root mass ideally looks like when you're repotting. That's a nice loaf. You can tell it's in a rectangular pot. Pick it right out. Oh, it's great. So we use volcanic particles, volcanic soil particles. Akadama and Konuma are 2 kinds of clay that are found in Japan. It's dried, creates these little balls of clay. And so as they break down, unlike organic matter, they don't rot and become anaerobic. They maintain their aeration and drainage. They become more like sand particles or some kind of stone particle. Lava is good for drainage. Pumice is more lightweight than any of these and is a good aerator. It provides, so you don't have to use as much akadama because that can get expensive when you start buying it in. There are a lot of folks, if you go into a bonsai meeting and say, what do you plant your bonsai in? You're gonna get a different answer from every person in the room. Everybody has a different ratio, everybody uses different components, but I will say from my experience, using some combination of these ingredients, the Konuma is actually just for azaleas. So these 3 ingredients, I just use these 2 in different ratios, and you can have great success. The Japanese have been using these for hundreds and hundreds of years. They work. There's a reason that they use them. If you're repotting and everything correctly, you're not overusing these materials, so it's not a cheap hobby to begin with, so it's worth investing if you're gonna do it. Akadama, just for an idea, it's about $30 a bag, but after you do the initial kind of potting, you don't need very much. Repotting only happens every 3 to 5 years usually. And you don't have to throw all of your soil out. So we kind of covered this earlier. There's different phases in bonsai development. So the seedling stage or the cutting stage is the very first stage. This cutting is about 3 weeks old. This is a newcomer. It's a cutting off of this kind of plant. This is a chojubai, which is a dwarf Japanese quince. And so this is a root cutting. And so eventually, we're gonna hope to get something like this. This is about, trying to think, 16 years old. So a couple years, and that'll be something. oh gosh, I saw some of these in Japan that were probably like 100, 150. Oh my God. The bark on them, mine is just getting bark and it's 16. These other ones had bark out to their twigs, so like hundreds of years old. It's crazy. So seedling stage, development stage. The very early development focuses just on trunk movement and branch structure. So something like this, where I'm just trying to get interesting branch placement and size of branching in place. And then ultimately, this will get cut, this will get styled, but right now it's very early development phase. So they look kind of silly. This one is in a little bit further development. You can see some of these are growing out as well. But then you get into the refinement phase. So once a tree moves into a bonsai pot is usually what you consider a refinement phase. So this focuses on styling, creating fine twigging and branching, and managing a mature tree. So something kind of like this, these guys over here, are well into the refinement phase. And it can fluctuate between development and refinement based on the tree, the health of the tree, and how you're caring for the tree. So this one's in a pot, right? But we're still developing these branches. So you can have a tree that's kind of in both phases. There's a lot of different styles of bonsai. And ways that you can choose to style raw material. So when you finally get to the point of styling and maintenance, you're looking at your trunk. You want to have nice nabari. That's where your roots hit the ground and spread out. You want to have a nice wide nabari spread. You want to have good taper in your trunk. And you want the shape of your trunk to be interesting. There's a number of kinds of pruning, structural, so that's just setting your basic branching, maintaining or maintenance pruning, so that's keeping that structure that you built, and then pinching and trimming new growth is just kind of growth management, regular stuff that you do every year in order to get more branching. Defoliation is what it sounds like. You take leaves off. What this does, and then you don't do this with every species, it's very species specific and timing specific. But when you get kind of deeper into it, say with a maple, sometimes you defoliate it, you take the leaves off, and then it pushes new leaves that are smaller, and it creates a second flush of growth, so you get twice as many twigs in 1 year. Wiring is probably what a lot of you have seen done on bonsai to create some styling. You actually take wires, either aluminum or copper, wrap them around the tree and the branches, and move them to the place that you want them to be. Jin and shari, these are deadwood elements. So I think I have a photo in here somewhere. You can see some on this juniper. These are, sometimes they're natural. If you collect something from the wild, it will have dead pieces on it. These were created to be interesting elements of design. Oh, the fertilizer on there. Whew. We just fertilized everything. It's stinky stuff. So if you've got raw stock, these are the same tree, believe it or not. This is for the advanced bonsai folks. You can start with something raw and make a tree. Here's if you buy something pre-bonsai. So like it's all kind of there, and then after you style it, you've just kind of pulled everything in to refine the shape. So this is more intermediate level. And then I know the tree might not look beginner level, but this is just needle maintenance. So the only thing that's been done here is old needles have been pulled and maybe a couple branches adjusted. So, and maintaining these trees, it's just small tasks repeated year after year after year. So it seems very overwhelming at first, all of the ways to get to bonsai, but really if you have one tree, you're just doing one or two things every year, over and over and over again, and eventually you'll get to a point of nice refinement. Here's an example of pruning. You only prune 1 or 2 times a year per tree, depending on the species. Make a few cuts, wait for it to regrow, make a few more cuts. Here's another way of pruning. This is kind of how I was talking about the defoliation of the maple. Once you cut back, or if you were to remove leaves, the dormant buds in here will grow and create new branching. Here's another, here's a look at defoliation, about halfway through of a ficus. This is done pretty regularly on ficus to reduce leaf size and to increase twigging. The tree will be totally fine. Give it 2 weeks. And here's an example of wiring. You put all your wire on, and then you're able to bend it. Sounds very simple. Wiring, I don't know how many hours I spend wiring, and I still mess it up sometimes. But it's fun to do, believe it or not. Aha, here's a great picture of Jin and Shari. So Jin is a dead branch. Shari is a connected line of deadwood that runs along the trunk or branches. They can be connected or separate, or you can kind of have some of both. This is a tree in Japan from Mr. Kimura. He is well known for carving and deadwood and this kind of thing on his trees. Okay, so I just dumped a lot at you. How do you get started? First, research, right? Do you want a tree that's low maintenance or high maintenance? Do you want an indoor tree or a tropical tree? Do you want an outdoor tree that's temperate? What do you like? Do you like stuff that flowers? Do you like conifers? Do you like maples? What's your budget? How much are you willing to pay? How much are you willing to invest in supplies and education? Because you don't just buy the tree. You buy the tree, then you have to buy the supplies. And then you get another tree, and then you buy more supplies. And then you have to buy a new pot, and then you find out that you like pots, and then you buy 20 pots, but you only have 2 trees. So then what do you do with all the pots? You have to buy more trees. You see, this gets out of hand very quickly. I probably have 50 pots. You know how many trees I have? Maybe 5. So far. Where do you go to buy a tree? I highly recommend going to a local bonsai nursery if you have one. They're one-stop shop for trees, supplies, and usually they know what they're doing, at least at a basic level. You can buy stuff offline. You never really know what you're going to get, how healthy it's going to be, that kind of thing. Look for a tree that's growing vigorously, has good color. Great example. Look at that. That's crazy. Very vigorous. Make sure you can meet the needs of the tree, light, temperature, water, etc. These are a few that I pulled off an online vendor. A lot of beginner folks start with trees about like this. It's a good place to start. Keep the tree alive. You can do some basic styling and move your way up into the more advanced things. What kind of tools do you need? Your basic toolkit. Shears for trimming. A concave cutter for larger branches. That's this one. So here's your shears. Here's your concave cutters. Don't use your shears for big branches, you'll break them. I've done it. Wire cutters, and pliers, and tweezers. Chopsticks. You use chopsticks a lot in bonsai. A lot of poking, a lot of pointing, a lot of hitting your neighbor. It's my favorite tool. Other options for supplies: wire, soil components or premix, sifting screens, a plastic screen for your pot, pots, soil scoop, cut paste, fertilizer, more tools. This is a vending area at a show. So you can just kind of see how much stuff you can get. This is the show, but this is really where it's at. That's where the action is. So I want to leave enough time for questions, but I've got a couple more slides just with information and educational resources. There's some local bonsai nurseries and professionals in Michigan. Greenwich Gardens is down in Monroe. They do open studios every Saturday. They travel a lot to different gardens and shows, do a lot of vending. Open Grove Bonsai is brand new in town. A professional who moved here out of Colorado. They're just starting up. They're going to do a lot of vending and workshops. They'll be in various locations. Becoming Bonsai, that's me on the side. Let me know if you have any questions about if you need any help with your trees. There's a lot of local clubs. Michigan's actually kind of a hot spot for bonsai. We've got a club right here in Ann Arbor. We have our meeting this month on Wednesday, starting at 6:30. Well, the meeting starts at 7, social is at 6:30. So feel free to join. We love new people coming. Mid-Michigan has a bonsai society. West Michigan has a bonsai society. And then Four Seasons is kind of another southeastern Michigan club focused, I think, out of like Rochester Hills area. There's also 3 botanical gardens in Michigan with bonsai collections. So us, Matthaei Botanical Gardens, that's a picture of our azaleas in bloom. Usually that's the first week of June, second week of June, about the same time as the peonies. We will post about it on socials when it happens. Hidden Lake Gardens, which is affiliated with MSU, is out in Tipton, Michigan. And then Frederick Meyer Gardens in Sculpture Park in Grand Rapids has a bonsai collection as well. There's some upcoming shows. May 9th and 10th, Frederick Meyer Gardens and Sculpture Park has their all-state show. Last year I was their guest artist, so they'll usually bring somebody in, do tours, critiques, workshops. There's a big vendor area. Usually there's about 100 trees on display. Ann Arbor Bonsai Society, annual show and sale, end of August. There's a new show in town, Fall Fruit and Foliage, at Hidden Lake Gardens in October. Because these are normal, regular trees from nature, they will change color. Prizes for best color. We're gonna win it. Online content. Be careful with, oh, that's the next one. Bonsai Empire, one of my most trusted sources for beginning bonsai website. It's great. Blogs, Crataegus Bonsai and Bonsai Tonight. Short, simple posts, lots of pictures, really interesting. And then same folks, Michael and Jonas both have books out as well. Jonas's books are great, great, great for beginners. Start here. Bonsai Heresy is more for an intermediate to advanced. Michael kind of debunks all these myths you hear about bonsai, which is really, really useful. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Oh no, here's where I was gonna say. Look for trusted bonsai professionals and club accounts. Anybody can post anything on YouTube about bonsai, a lot of it's wrong. Podcasts, those are fun. There's a lot of bonsai podcasts. All right, here's the azalea. That's in bloom right now. Come see it, it's great. If you liked hearing me talk now, I talk a lot on this podcast. Hours and hours and hours of bonsai content. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me at carmentr@umich. You can follow me on Instagram. Follow Matthaei on Instagram and Facebook. And let me know if you have any questions.
Does anyone have any? I'll come around with the microphone.
I'm always curious.
Yes.
I'm sorry, we need to have you use the microphone for accessibility.
Over the years, I've always been curious how you would water them since the soil is always domed over the pot. And do the pots have holes for drainage?
Yes, the pots all have holes for drainage. That's a great question. You can see under here, oh, my name's still on there. This went to a show last year, so I labeled it. The pots have drainage here for water to go through, and then every tree is actually wired in the pot, so you can go like this and it doesn't fall out. But watering, it's an art. It's one of those, it's the first thing you do, last thing you master. It's a lot of wrist movements very quickly, kind of around and around and around until you get water coming out the bottom. So kind of, yeah, so like half strength hose and then just a lot of quick movements until it goes through. Mm-hmm.
Why are the Rocky Mountains and the Cascades so popular for choosing conifers?
That's a great question. Out there, there's a lot of natural elements that create interesting trees. So from the snow load to the like harsh UV light to the way the bugs eat some of the and kill off some of the live tissue, makes some of them twist. Deer browse or wild animal browsing, rock slides. And then in some cases, their roots are only growing in very shallow pockets of stone or soil, so they just don't have a lot of nutrients. And so they just have these interesting, I don't have a good picture of one in here. They have a lot of interesting movements, and they're oftentimes very old, but still very small. So yeah, folks will go up there and hunt for stuff. Yeah.
Follow-up question, are they choosing from a certain altitude then?
Yes, oftentimes, I don't know what it is, I haven't collected, but yeah, a lot of times there's very specific locations and altitudes that they're looking for very specific things, because at certain points, all the trees are just straight, but if you go above that line or something, you'll find some interesting trees there.
At the botanical gardens, do all the all, like, even if they're varieties that could stay out in winter, do they all come inside because Michigan winters are pretty harsh?
Yes. All of our tropicals stay inside in the greenhouses, and they'll be on display through the winter in the conservatory. But all of these guys, some of them could tolerate lower temperatures than others, but for just ease, we put everything into a cold greenhouse where we try to keep it between 34 and 42 degrees. There's only so much we can do. But that's our goal. So everybody gets a dormant period, but nobody freezes. And then we can access them all winter too.
Anyone else?
That was a lot of information at you guys real fast. Yeah.
So kind of a follow-up to that. So if you have one at home and you keep it outside in Michigan, do you need to bring, whether it's tropical or not, would you bring it in during the winter and like keep it in a cool spot, or how do you
For
manage?
temperate trees, it's best to leave them outdoors, either up against your house, like out of the wind, some on the ground, because the ground will add a couple extra degrees of heat. Some folks will mulch them in just so that, like, there's an extra barrier around the root system. Other folks keep them in their garage, but you do have to be careful to make sure things stay watered, because they will dry out over time, even in the winter. So there's a lot of different options for overwintering. The very easiest is if you get a pine tree that's super hardy anyway, and then you just tuck it up against your house and maybe put a little burlap around it or something. So Michigan's tricky for bonsai in the winter. In the winter, not really. You can get away with very low light conditions in the winter.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much, Carmen, for your time.
Thank you guys so much. I have pens and stickers if anybody wants some swag.